Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Well, the official clock says 5:15, so I'm going to start. So, those of you who didn't see me this morning, I'm Charlie Stripp, I'm the Chief Executive of MEI, and we're having a plenary now which is really about stuff that's happening in Level 3 maths. And so, Level 3 maths is AS A-level maths, core maths, but also includes things like AS A-level stats and those things as well, but really focusing on AS A-level maths and core maths and further maths as well at AS A-level. So, we've got a plenary in four parts, I suppose, really. To start with, I'm going to talk about what's been happening in Level 3 maths education, which is a lot, as I'm sure many of you are aware. But I'm going to think in a kind of perspective over the past 15 years, really, at the start, to see quite a lot's changed. We're then going to talk a bit about the Advanced Maths Support Programme, and Kevin Lord, my colleague, is going to talk about that. And then, because core maths is a new thing, relatively new, how many people in the room are involved in core maths teaching? Okay, quite a few, but not everybody by any means. We're going to do a little bit about core maths in particular, because that's an area where we can really expand Level 3 maths participation, and then we're going to do some questions and things at the end. So that's the format, and I'll start with thinking about some history. So MEI has been involved, in fact, I started working for MEI in 2000 because of the work they were doing involving access to further maths. And so MEI has been working in this area really since 2000 in terms of large-scale support for Level 3 maths. Where that came from is actually a delegate at the MEI Conference who said that she was very concerned that she felt that access to further maths was becoming the only available to students in independent schools, and fewer state schools could offer further maths, and that was actually a real sort of social injustice, which I'm a great champion of trying to solve social injustice, and I think that's definitely true. We wanted to try to do something about that, about access to further maths. So we did that pilot project which started in 2000, and I came from the classroom to run that project initially to set it up. And it was funded by the Gatsby Charitable Foundation, which I don't know if any of you know, Gatsby is Lord Sainsbury, who I think last year celebrated giving £1 billion to charity. So that's quite cool, isn't it? And he did actually, so we had some correspondence with him about this, and it's something that he feels that, he said nice things that he felt what he'd done with this was good. So what happened is that we started off with 3 years funding, and we got working with some universities. In fact, Keele was involved in the early days in that, but Warwick was heavily involved, other universities. And it seemed that we were able to get some traction in terms of supporting state schools and colleges to offer further maths. And around that time, 2004-05, we had Adrian Smith's first report on maths education. Do you remember it's called Making Mathematics Count? Any of you remember that? Yeah. Some of you that have been in the game a bit longer will remember the Cockcroft report, which was called Mathematics Counts. And that was a lot longer ago. Still, if you've not read it, fantastic piece of work, actually. But I think that, Adrian Smith championed what we were doing a little bit with the government, and that resulted in us getting government funding to start what was then the Further Maths Network. Anyone in here old enough to remember that? Okay, there's a few hands going up. So we started off with the Further Maths Network, and that was around for 4 years, and then that evolved into what became the Further Maths Support Programme, and MEI was running these things, and that programme, the Further Maths Support Programme, continued right up until the 30th of April 2018, when actually it finished. Because what's happened is that now we have the Advanced Maths Support Programme. In between those things, Core Maths was born. And the idea of Core Maths I'll talk a bit more about later, but it's really about filling a gap in qualifications so that more young people can study maths usefully post-16. And there was a Core Maths Support Programme that really got Core Maths off the ground. Any people in here involved in the piloting for Core Maths? I can see a couple of hands. So that was a very interesting thing. So we had the Core Maths Support Programme, and what we've now got with the Advanced Maths Support Programme is bringing all of those things together so that we've got Level 3 maths support being done all by one organisation, if you like. But the idea is that what we'll be going out into schools with is thinking about how you can make sure that you've got a full provision of Level 3 maths, so that your students can get the maths education that they need, and trying to make that work everywhere. Okay, so some good news. AS A-level maths and further maths numbers have been growing strongly for a long time. There's been a sustained period of growth. So I'll show you some graphs. So this is A-level maths, and you can see that I think since 2003, numbers of students doing A-level maths, that's the red line, just about doubled. And you can see the blue line is AS, and it's very hard to interpret AS data because all of those people there, well, not all of them, a lot of those people who are in the blue line in one year took the A-level the following year. But there's also something going on with many people, I think, taking AS mathematics as a qualification in its own right. And I think that again, is something I want to talk about a bit later. So that's what happened to A-level maths across that period from 2003 to 2017. And that's quite, that's unusual, remarkable. And I'll explain a bit more about why it is later. We also got a similar graph for further maths. Further maths is actually even more surprising because it started off with around 5,000 students and now there's a bit over 15,000. So it's trebled in that time. And AS numbers there, again, there's that complication that many of the AS students went on to take the A-level the next year. There's also a big important factor that AS further maths is really valued by universities, particularly STEM departments. And so AS further maths as a qualification in its own right is a very important thing that we want to continue to support. So that's all important stuff, and you can see that there's been some very good things happening over the past 15 years or so. And that is a real change because, well, let me show you this first. I'm always a bit wary of league tables. They're not good things, are they, league tables? But there are a couple of league tables that I quite enjoy, okay? And this is one I like. So this is A-level entries by subject in 2005. And you can see that maths is 4th and further maths is 27th, okay? And that is 2017. And so now maths is 1st and further maths is 16th. Like that, yeah? It's good, isn't it? So that's a real change. It's not just, it's not that there's been something strange about more people doing more A-levels. It's that maths relative to other subjects has really taken off quite strongly. And that's well, obviously, we're MEI, we think that's a very good thing. Okay, this is another graph. This is a graph from the JCQ. And this graph actually is all of UK data. The previous graphs I just showed you, we'd isolated out England, but the JCQ analysed it for the whole of the UK. But again, this is the top 10 A-level subjects in terms of participation over 10 years. And you can see that the other 9 are pretty flat, but maths has really grown. So it's something different that has happened. So this idea that maths is being recognised as being more important, that is happening already. But actually, we need that to happen a lot more. Okay, this one's a bit more fuzzy, but we're thinking about, we've got data there from up to 2017. This is data from the government, from Ofqual, and this is thinking about what's happening across between 2017 and 2018. So they've got some advanced numbers here about what the entries are going to be in 2018 for different A-levels. And you can see that, well, first of all, I don't know how well you can see that, it's not a very big graph, but the kind of bars on the right as you look at it, the grey bars are subjects that have declined, and the blue bars are subjects that have increased. The length of the bar is very difficult because that bar that seems incredibly long, their percentage changes and the numbers there are very small. So don't worry too much about that. It's really thinking about how there have been sort of changes, positive and negative. First thing to highlight down at the bottom there is that the number of A-levels taken is likely to fall by about 3% based on these Ofqual figures. Okay, but despite that, if you look here, this is maths and further maths, and those bars there are maths and further maths. And maths has gone up again. It's blue. Further maths, incredibly, has got exactly the same number as last year, according to this. Which I wish it had just been a little bit blue, but anyway, exactly the same numbers last year. But bear in mind, there's a 3% overall decrease in numbers of A-levels taken. That's looking pretty healthy. You're probably all itching to know what the blue one is at the top if you can't read it, and that's computing, I think, the one that's really showing a big increase, and there's a push in that direction, a push for that subject as well, obviously. But I think this shows that there's perhaps continuing good news trend for maths. Bit of a complication though. This is still the old maths A-level, isn't it? So the new maths A-level, we'll have figures about that next year. So next year will be very interesting. We need to see what that looks like. But at the moment, things are looking quite positive in terms of the future for maths, particularly AS and A-level. Okay, core maths. So core maths is aimed at students who get a grade 4 or above at GCSE, but who aren't going to do AS maths, A-level maths, further maths, and there can be a variety of reasons for that. Perhaps they're humanities specialists, perhaps they're linguists, all kinds of different things they might want to do. But the idea is that actually everyone would benefit from doing more maths because it's so important in life and work. And one of the things that I'll show you some more about in a moment, but here in this country, very unusually, a very large proportion of people who succeed, if you like, they exceed national expectations at key stage 4 in terms of their level 2 outcomes, and yet they stop doing any maths at all at age 16. And that's over 250,000 students each year. And part of the reason that has happened here in the past is because there hasn't really been a qualification suitable for them. And core maths is intended to be, it's intended to fill that gap. And there's real evidence from, well, I've got ACME and some Jeremy Hodgin work and stuff up there saying that actually there's a real need for this in higher education and in employment. And I've got more evidence about that later. So core maths was first examined in 2016, and there were a bit under 3,000 students. Examined again last year, a bit over 5,000 students. And I think that this year, based on what I've heard on the grapevine, there'll be over 7,000 students. Still a very long way away from 250,000 students, but at the moment we couldn't provide the teaching capacity for that anyway. But I think that this is something. What I want is for this to be a really big thing that happens. In 10 years' time, I want there to be 6-figure numbers up there for core maths, and I think that's what we need to achieve. Okay, so raising participation. That's what the Advanced Maths Support Programme is all about. Why is raising participation level 3 maths important? So we need to think about that. Why does it matter? Okay, well, Professor Adrian Smith, who did the Making Mathematics Count in 2005, last year published something called the Smith Review of Post-16 Mathematics Education. People seen that? Aware of it? A few people nodding, okay? And he was commissioned to do this report. It's quite telling, really. He was commissioned by the Treasury and the Department for Education. Because, governments care about money, don't they? Economics. And the view is that actually it's really important to sort out maths education at a higher level because the modern economy, the jobs that are lucrative and are going to add value require maths skills. And the other side of the equation for this is that actually, compared with many of our industrial competitors, our participation in maths at a higher level is low. So how are we going to fix that? And that really is what Adrian Smith was asked to look at. And this is the opening paragraph of his report, essentially. Just saying, look, how can we deal with that, is what he was charged with doing. So if you haven't looked at it, do have a look. For this kind of report, it's a surprisingly good read, actually. That isn't necessarily high praise in terms of its readability, but it is. The recommendations are clear, and I think there's lots of stuff there that, as maths educators, you'll really agree with. He's really batting for maths. Okay, so stuff about international comparisons, but a bit of evidence about that. We really do lag well behind our international competitors. So in 2011, I think originally, and then Nuffield have updated the work since, looking at international comparisons, there's a kind of league table type idea of countries that are a bit like us economically, and we're at the bottom for participation in maths at this level. And we really do need to change that. Well under 20% of young people doing maths at a higher level post-16. Now, there are other countries that have got well over half. And we're talking particularly about countries in the Far East, Eastern Europe, the places where economies are booming and they're becoming very competitive. And our Treasury is worried. We need to try to match that if we can. And I think that Adrian Smith was very clear about this idea. We need more people who are more highly qualified in maths to help us compete economically. That's essential. So this is the economic stuff. Okay. Something the government has done as a result of the Smith Review is they've produced something called the Advanced Maths Premium. I think I might have asked about this earlier, but how many people have heard of the Advanced Maths Premium? Okay, so that's a lot of people, I think, but not everybody. And what the Advanced Maths Premium is about, it's about incentivising schools and colleges to encourage more young people to do maths post-16 at level 3, so core maths, AS and A-level maths and further maths. And the way it's worked out is that they set a baseline, which is based on academic year numbers for 2015-16 and 2016-17. And so the average number of students in those 2 years that were doing a level 3 maths qualification, and that becomes the baseline for an institution. And then subsequent years, if you beat that baseline, then you get £600 extra funding for your school or college because you've beaten the baseline per student. And the baseline is fixed. So, potentially, it's a real incentive for having more young people doing level 3 maths. One simple way of thinking about it, I suppose, is that if your A-level maths numbers remained unchanged and your further maths numbers remained unchanged, but you suddenly introduced core maths and had a class of 15 students, your school would get 9,000 quid for those students. So that's actually a pretty strong incentive, actually. And I think that what we need is to really make sure that schools and senior leadership in schools know about this, understand how important maths education at this level is being viewed for the young people's future, and really think about how they can make sure there's a really strong offer for level 3 maths. So AS maths, AS further maths and core maths all count, and A-level maths and A-level further maths will count once in year 12 and again in year 13. So a student doing double maths, if you like, can get sort of 4 points towards the advanced maths premium. So you need a few of them. You can't do core maths as well, but that's you can't mix it all up. But it is an incentive, and I think that it's a kind of a mark of how seriously the government is taking this. That this has been done. So another interesting about it is that there's an estimate. I think that in the budget speech it talked about £18 million, but then it said it was uncapped. So if there was really massive take-up, they'd be committed to spending out more than £80 million on this. So it's a big thing. And really make sure if your school senior leadership isn't already thinking about this, they should be. Okay, this is a terribly confusing table, so I won't talk about it much, but it's really saying that if we want to understand about raising participation, we need to know what happens now to students when they get their GCSE maths and where they go. So this is a rather complex table from the DFE, but there's a rather nice chart that was in the Smith Review, so I'll put the chart up. Does anyone in the room know what this chart is called? Because I used to know and I've forgotten. No? We'll try and reveal it before the end of the conference at least, but it's got a fancy name. But the idea is that over on the left-hand side is the GCSE grade that a student achieved at the end of Key Stage 4. And they've got grades from A star down to E there, E and below. On the right-hand side is their highest participation in maths post-16. If you look at the way that the bars work, then looking up here, A stars, very large proportion of A stars go on and do A-level, not surprising. Okay? And in fact, a higher proportion of A stars in maths go on to do A-level than for any other subject. A's, quite a lot of them go on to do A-level, quite a lot go to AS for their highest participation, but look at that. None. So they've got an A, no maths post-16. Look at the B's, okay? There's a very small number going up to A-level there. There's a few going into AS. All of those, none. Look at the C's, okay? Very few going up, all of them going to none. So these B's and all of these groups up here, they have succeeded in maths in terms of meeting national expectations for achievements in maths at age 16, and they've stopped doing any maths at all. Now that's just silly. It's not what happens in other countries because it's recognised how important math skills are, and we need to fix that. So the idea, I think, is that if I go up here, so up there, that's the level 3 stuff, and that's where core maths will be as well. So this diagram is before core maths. Okay? What we want to do is move the nuns up into there. And that's a part of what the Advanced Maths Support Programme is about. It's really trying to help the education system, schools and colleges, be able to make that happen. Okay, another graph then. This is thinking about AS level. So AS level is something particularly important, I think, because AS level in maths and AS level in further maths, they are really valuable qualifications in their own right. And actually, we want more people to do them. So we've got a situation where the way policy has changed with decoupling and all those things, lots of schools only offering 3 subjects to year 12 students. We've got ourselves into a situation where actually AS maths isn't offered in lots of places. And it's not offered because, people are just going to do the A-level. Well, actually, doing an AS in maths alongside 3 other subjects is a really valuable thing to do. And if you want to do some subjects, some parts of, I suppose, some businessy type things, economics, biology, that kind of thing, AS is probably better than core maths for what you want to do in some circumstances. So there's a choice to be made there. And it shouldn't be, you shouldn't be thinking about, let's not offer ASs, because AS maths and AS further maths are very important AS levels, and they should be being offered. And University Engineering Professors Council waxes lyrical about the value of AS further maths for engineering undergraduates. So it's really important that these continue. So what I'd like to see is that, we've got this plummeting in A-level entries across 2016 to 2018 remaining pretty constant. Yeah? AS entries, absolutely plummeting. Well, my view is that's fine, but not for maths. Okay? So we've got to recognise that the maths ASs are really important and need to be viewed differently. And actually, the advanced maths premium is saying that. It's saying, we really value, the government is saying, we really value these qualifications such that we're going to pay a funding incentive if you get more people doing them. So, it's a really important message. Okay, so, this is all subjects. And, you can really see, I was very surprised by that. And actually, next year, it will be even starker. There'll be another really big drop because next year, obviously, there's, it's all new style A-levels. Okay. Talking about gender as well. So there's another issue to do with gender. So this graph it's a bit confusing, isn't it? If you sort of squint at this, it moves around, doesn't it? But this is different subjects and what the gender split is. And essentially the blue is not very imaginatively the boys and the red is the girls. And you can see that there's a natural inequality across subjects for whatever reason. It's natural, but certainly maths and further maths, the inequality in terms of participation has been very consistent. We've had about 40% of girls and 60% of boys. No, the proportion of A-level maths students has been 40% girls and 60% boys for a long time. Okay, if you go and find all the records you can get from JCQ, it's roughly that all the time. Similarly for further maths, 30%, 70% girls to boys. Now, that's an inequality that we might want to think about. Okay, so how do we raise participation? Well, AS and A-level, I think the first thing we can talk about is just encouraging more to take AS/A-level maths, and that actually means encouraging more to take AS level. So if you're an institution that offers just 3 A-levels, then if one of those 3 A-levels isn't maths, then a student who's doing 3 A-levels but not maths should be doing either core maths or AS maths in year 12. Or over year 12 and year 13, because they should be doing some maths alongside what they're doing, because it will be of great benefit to them. You're letting your students down if they haven't got that option. So, and I think that students with grade 6 or 5, lots of places at the moment I think are not letting those students start because they're worried that they will fail an A-level. But if you're thinking about AS level, then it may be that they do really well in their AS level and decide to drop something else and carry on to full A-level. But at least they've done some more maths, or they can do core maths depending on what their preferences are. But you need to make a decision about, or they need to be able to make a decision, is AS maths the best thing for me, or is it core maths, depending on what my aspirations are. For most, it will be core maths, but for some, it will be AS. Okay, so emphasise the value of those AS qualifications. We also need to address regional variation in uptake. Around the country, the kind of affluent parts of the country, there's generally speaking much higher uptake of maths qualifications at a high level than there is in the poorer parts of the country. That is perpetuating social inequality. We need to find ways of addressing that. And again, that's something the Advanced Maths Support Programme will think about. And encourage more girls to take AS and A-level maths. And that, it says here, I've got some numbers here about in 2017, if the number of girls had been the same as the number of boys, then rather than 87,679, we'd have had 107,262. In further maths, it's even starker than that, obviously. I think we'd be up over 30,000 further maths students from having, I think that's right, from having 15,000. So it's a big change. Okay, core maths, I think big things there about raising awareness of the qualification, encouraging demand for the qualification from universities and employers. I think I've got Paul Glaister in the room somewhere who's done lots and lots of work on raising awareness of core maths in universities, and I think that's beginning to pay off. And I think it will be paying off with employers as well. Employers will talk a lot about how lack of maths skills costs them money. That they want more young people to do this. We've also got a big issue is schools and colleges just being able to teach it. And that's a big thing that the Advanced Maths Support Programme will be doing, actually helping more schools and colleges to be able to teach this. And there'll be a big push on that, and Kevin will talk about that instead as well. Okay, so we did a survey last year. I think we had about 400 responses from, we sent something out to every school or college that offers A-level maths. We got back about 400 responses. So it's an opportunity sample, I can't pretend it's representative. But essentially the gender split for core maths that we got back was about 50-50, which is encouraging. Okay, so why does gender imbalance matter? That's a question, isn't it? And people will say, well, people are different, and maybe boys prefer maths and girls prefer English. Maybe so. But actually, in this country, we're very concerned about income inequality. And there's lots and lots of research showing that, well, first of all, that lucrative careers in STEM and business require high-level maths skills, and therefore high level of maths education. But also, some quite interesting research, and you can you can have a look at the different references for this. In the PowerPoint, well, I think we'll try and make it so the whole PowerPoint can be available, and we'll try and put all the references. There'll be more references on there than there are in here. But there seems to be quite good evidence that just having A-level maths means you earn 10% more money. Calling cause and effects in that is very difficult, isn't it? But it's an important idea that if we've got inequality, a significant inequality in participation and significant inequality in pay, perhaps we can do something about that by getting more girls to do maths at a higher level. And I think that the thing about that premium for earnings is that no other A-level conveys that premium like maths does. It just doesn't seem to be there in research, but in maths it seems to be there. Okay, so raising participation level 3 maths. Well, here's some the Smith Review. Maths-specific messages are needed for students, schools and others about the increasing importance of maths and quantitative skills to a broad range of careers, future employability and resilience in a changing labour market. So that's a pretty strong statement, about how important it is that more people take their maths education further. So that's one thing. But my view is that, all the government stuff is all about economics, but I think that there are kind of higher things in here as well. So I'm a great fan of Bertrand Russell. If you've seen me speak before, you might have seen me use this quote before. But this is, I like this, I'll read it because I like it so much. But, one of the impediments to successful democracy in our age is the complexity of the modern world, which makes it difficult for ordinary men and women to form an intelligent opinion on political questions, or even to decide whose expert judgment deserves the most respect. The cure for this problem, this trouble, is to improve education. So that was Bertrand Russell in 1932. I'm sure it was true then, but it's even more true now, and particularly true about quantitative things, quantitative education. So there's a real sort of moral reason for doing this. So we need to get behind it. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about the Advanced Maths Support Programme. I'll hand over in a moment to my colleague. But essentially, it's a DFE-funded programme, initially for 2 years. What I would say about that is that the further maths programmes that you looked at earlier were initially funded for 2 years, and 15 years later they were still running and still being successful. But it's initially for 2 years. It started on the 1st of May, so the further maths support programme finished on one day and the advanced maths support programme started the next. But obviously it's into next academic year is when it will really start hitting the ground properly. It's got to build from the work of the FMSP and the CMSP. We're not reinventing the wheel, we're trying to do things effectively. It's led by MEI, and its purpose is to increase participation in level 3 maths education. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kevin Lord. Kevin.
Thank you. Is it clicking? Yeah. Hello. So the Advanced Maths Support Programme, as Charlie said, is already underway. It started on the 1st of May. And it's a national project funded by the DFE for all schools in England, all state-funded schools in England, all ages, all from Key Stage, those that just have students up to Key Stage 4, as well as sixth form colleges, FE colleges, 11 to 18 schools, the whole range. And I think there is something within the support that the FMSP offers. Sorry, so used to saying FMSP. I knew one of us was going to say the MSP offers that is suitable for a wide range of schools. So one of the key aims of the Advanced Maths Support Programme is to raise participation in A-level maths and further maths and in core maths, and also to improve the quality of teaching of mathematics at GCSE and beyond. And through the work of the Advanced Maths Support Programme, we've got a huge programme of professional development that will be available to teachers across the country. And I think one of the things that Charlie was saying about regional variation and gender inequality, that's an area that the MSP really wants to tackle, is those sort of inequalities in opportunity. So regardless of the background of students, their gender or where they live in the country, they're equally as likely to take a level 3 maths qualification as anywhere else, as any other student. So in broader summary, what the AMSP support consists of are these different elements that I've got on the slide there. And the sort of overall theme of that is promoting mathematics to students, encouraging more students to study mathematics, supporting those students in schools where they are having difficulty studying further mathematics, and also providing support for teachers through resources, through professional development, as well as targeting specific support in areas where the schools in sort of the greatest need of support for developing level 3 mathematics. So I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on some of those things and give you an idea of what the AMSP is actually going to offer. One of the aspects of the programme is to provide support for students and to promote mathematics. Promoting mathematics to make them aware of the range of options that they have. A lot of that work is focused on Key Stage 4 students and sometimes even younger students at Key Stage 3. So to inspire them to take an interest in mathematics and to give them an idea of the different pathways that are open to them and the importance of studying mathematics beyond GCSE. We also have another side of the student support, which is direct support for students who are trying to study further maths in schools where it's perhaps not available because there are either small numbers of students wishing to study it and the school doesn't feel as though it can afford to put on those classes, or they just don't feel that they have the capacity amongst the teaching staff to deliver further maths to those students. So we will offer a range of tuition options for those students. A lot of that tuition is via online classrooms, but we still continue to do tuition face-to-face in different schools. And then the other support is for students who are in the sixth form who are wanting to consider studying either for a mathematics degree or a STEM degree at university, where they need help in preparing perhaps for a university entrance test. And so the regular support that we provide around the country is for students to improve their problem-solving skills in sort of A-level maths and further maths in order for them to succeed at these university entrance tests. So in terms of some of the support that we offer for teachers, a lot of that revolves around providing resources. So schools that register with the AMSP, the teachers in those schools will get access to resources that are on MEI's integral site. Those resources are for teaching further maths. They're also for teaching the applied units in A-level maths, the applied content, mechanics and statistics, compulsory now in AS and A-level maths. And they also will receive access for students to get access to videos, lectures to help them study further maths. And those have been developed with the FMSP, and other resources that we're developing with the FMSP will continue to be available to schools through the AMSP, and they'll continue to be freely available to schools. The last bullet point on there is some of the new development work that the AMSP will be doing, which will be taking on the development of an online platform of resources to help teachers deliver core maths courses. Stella will say a little bit more about those, but those will be developing some new material and also signposting through the platform to resources that were developed by teachers through the CMSP and pulling together other resources that are useful for teaching core maths. In terms of raising the profile of Level 3 mathematics and liaison with employers and universities, we've got a programme planned of working with higher education and with employers about telling them about the changes in terms of Level 3 qualifications, and in particular emphasising the change to the new qualification, core maths, to get recognition for that qualification. We want more universities in particular to have explicit encouragement in their entry information about core maths, about the usefulness of studying A-level further maths for different degree courses. And what I see the AMSP is being a bridge between employees in higher education, the information that they want to share with schools, providing that information to schools so that teachers can properly guide and advise students on what would be the best choices for them in terms of level 3 maths pathways. So in terms of teacher support and professional development, there's a huge range of courses that the AMSP is going to be providing. And the programme that we have is very extensive, with huge targets for the numbers of teachers participating in training and support over the next 2 years. And the areas that we will be providing support for are, as you might expect, A-level maths and further maths, and teaching of core maths. But as I mentioned, higher level problem solving, helping students prepare for university entrance tests. A lot of teachers require some support to build their confidence in tackling those papers themselves. And we also have, through the FMSP, and will continue through the AMSP, to provide a lot of support for teachers teaching GCSE, because it's really at GCSE where a lot of students form their view as to whether they want to carry on and study mathematics. So it's their experience at GCSE that we sort of want to influence through the professional development there. So we have that as our sort of menu of subject content and pedagogical ideas that we want to cover. But we are going to do that through a variety of different formats of courses. So we have a range of sustained courses, and all of those course titles are for courses that last anywhere from 6 months to a year. In the case of teaching A-level maths, the TAM course, and I think there's probably people in the audience who've been on the TAM course over the last few years. That's a 12-month course. The others are 6-month-long courses. And they're really for developing teachers' subject knowledge, pedagogical skills in those particular areas, and going very much in depth through a series of study days, online support over a sustained period of time. Equally, we want to make sure that our courses are flexible enough for teachers, whatever their circumstances, to actually be able to access this PD. So we've had, over many years, developed innovative approaches to giving people access to professional development. The live online professional development means that teachers can do this in their own home, in an evening, over a series of nights, in an online classroom with a tutor, and develop their subject knowledge in particular aspects of either A-level maths or core maths or whatever. And the new development there is the on-demand PD, because even that, even our live online professional development probably isn't flexible enough to meet the needs of all teachers. Some teachers aren't available on the night when that course is operating. So we're developing an on-demand professional development programme so that actually you can watch recordings and interact with a tutor whenever it's suitable for you. We will continue to run lots of one-day events, one-day professional development events and conferences across the country, and these will be available in all areas, all regions. Clicker. And the network meetings that have been operated up to now by the FMSP will continue under the AMSP, and there's about between 60 and 70 active networks across the country, and these are the ones where we want to give teachers an opportunity to meet together, maybe once every half term or once a term, to discuss issues, share good practice, and also get some elements of professional development in a twilight setting that's convenient for them. The AMSP is going to be working with Maths Hubs and supporting the 3 work groups where teachers work over a sustained period on aspects of level 3 maths, and the 3 titles of those work groups are to do with core maths, embedding technology in A-level teaching and developing pedagogy for A-level teaching. And then on top of all that sort of what I would describe as actual professional development through a course type structure, we have area coordinators all across the country in every region who provide regular advice and support to schools, talking to them about the curriculum, talking about options, schemes of work, and that advice and support will continue through the local area coordinators and also through the national coordinators. So I mentioned just a minute ago about the work groups. That is what jointly organising the work groups is one way that we're collaborating with the NCTM and Maths Hubs, but we have strong links with both the NCTM and the Maths Hubs, and the AMSP will have 2 link coordinators working nationally to make sure everything that the AMSP does is joined up with the sort of level 3 work that the Maths Hubs and the NCTM is doing. And at a local level, our area coordinators meet regularly with the level 3 leads from the Maths Hubs to ensure that support for schools in that particular area is properly coordinated, and we have a coherent plan of support for schools nationally. So I've mentioned about the national programme. So everything I said up to now is available to all schools wherever they are. But then within that, there is targeted support for priority areas. And those priority areas are the 12 opportunity areas that the government have announced a couple of years ago, as well as 20 local authorities that we've worked with the DFE to decide which are the local authorities where participation is in level 3 maths is low, and schools within those areas are designated as a priority area. And we'll also have additional support for specific individual schools that have a particular need about improving level 3 mathematics around the country. And that support will be through direct work with the school, through an agreed action plan, targeting things like trying to reduce gender inequality, improve participation, improve the teaching within there, by signposting teachers within the school to various initiatives that the AMSP is running. And another way that we plan to target that is just to make sure that teachers in those particular priority areas have the best possible access to everything that the AMSP offers in terms of student support and teacher support, by locating courses near to where they are, by giving them some financial contribution to cover costs or travel costs in order to make sure that they can be involved as well as possible in everything that the AMSP is doing. So I'll just finish with two more graphs. So Charlie had a league table before about entries. This is a different kind of league table. This is a league table in terms of numbers of institutions that had at least one student entered for that A level in 2017. And on this particular chart, Further Maths does a lot better because it's ranked 10th on this. So mathematics, as you wouldn't be surprised, is actually at the top of that league table. Of the 2,200 institutions that had somebody entered for an A level, the vast majority of them had somebody enter for A-level maths, and you wouldn't be surprised about the other subjects near the top, but Further Maths comes in 10th position. Now, that wasn't the picture back in 2005. In 2005, only about 40% of institutions offering A-levels had entries for A-level Further Maths. So these are in England, and I think it does say at the top that in the state sector. So I'm not talking about the independents, only 40%. Now, in 2017, or last year, that was very close to 70% of institutions had at least one student taking Further Maths. And I guess the challenge over the next few years is being able to sustain that growth and actually increase the number of institutions that are offering Further Maths to their students. But also, at the same time, if I insert on that graph where core maths is currently, it's not actually in a 21st position, it's much further down. with only about 17% of institutions with students entered for core maths in 2017. So it's got a long way to go until core maths is widely available and all students across the UK, across England, have access to core maths. And that's something that the AMSP is going to be working on. And that's one of our key challenges over the next 2 years, is to increase the number of institutions that are offering core maths. So I'm going to hand over to Stella, really, to say some more about exactly what we're going to do about core maths.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, I want you to think about what percentage of the world's population do you think are going to watch any of the World Cup? I want to get an idea of what the range of opinions is in this room, so make a decision about what percentage you think it is. And now I'm going to ask you to vote for the percentage that is nearest to the percentage you were thinking of. We will vote in the traditional manner. We don't have any technology to help us do that. So, option A, vote now. Thank you. Option B. Option C. And option D. Thank you very much. We have a complete range of opinions in the room, with perhaps most people thinking it's C and the second most popular option being B. So 50% has the majority, 25% is running a close second. If we want to know what the actual percentage is, then we need some data. Here's a figure that I saw on Mock the Week. So that gives us how many are going to watch the World Cup. If I want to know the percentage, I need to know how many people there are in the world. Now, maybe you've got an idea how many people there are in the world. If not, easy to look up, and there it is. So those of you that had 50% were the closest. Using those figures, I made it 45%. Now, if that's correct, then not only is the World Cup a major sporting event, but it's great for marketing purposes, and it's an event of economic significance. But where did that 3.4 billion figure come from? Well, you know where it came from. It came from Mock the Week. Where did they get it from? How did somebody figure that out? The newspapers and the websites that cite that 3.4 million figure say it comes from a firm called Global Web Index. Now, they survey people in over 40 countries, internet users aged between 16 and 64. And by doing that, they came up with 47%. So the question is that percentage also true of the whole population of the world? And what information would you need to help you decide whether you can go from that sample to the whole world population and say, well, it'll be more or less the same. Is that reasonable? Is it not reasonable? Now, having given you a flavour of some of the kinds of thinking that takes place in core maths, I'm now going to give you some information about core maths, but not quite as quickly as that. Core maths is about students being able to use maths to solve realistic problems. That includes being able to judge whether the information that they're being given is reasonable and realistic. It also includes being able to decide what information they need in order to be able to solve a problem. Now, both of those are very important life skills. Having said that core maths is really more about problem solving than it is about content, there is content in core maths because you need to know some stuff to be able to solve problems. But the way that these qualifications have developed is first deciding what kinds of realistic problems students will need to be able to solve. The content has followed from there. And the content varies between the different core maths qualifications because people have taken slightly different views of what's important. But they all include some statistics because we all need to be able to interpret data. You've seen plenty of statistical graphs already in the past 3/4 of an hour. We all need to be able to understand that kind of stuff. The core maths qualifications are based on technical guidance, which gives the requirements for the qualifications, And essentially it says that they should provide progress from GCSE and enable students to solve the kinds of problems which they're going to encounter in their future work and their future study. Why should students study core maths? Well, it's fun, that's maybe the top reason, but they'll also be better equipped to understand the world and better equipped for their future work and their future study. The reformed A-levels in many of the popular subjects have got maths in them, and so do vocational qualifications, and teachers report that doing core maths helps students to do well in the other subjects that they're taking. Core maths has UCAS points just like an AS level. It's not yet widely available, so universities aren't yet saying you must have core maths in order to do this degree, but they are very positive about it, and we are starting to hear some reports of students who do core maths getting lower university offers because of that. Two things from students. The first one's an example from a student who's done core maths and gone on to do a degree in psychology, saying that it's helping to understand the statistics in a psychology degree. And the second example is from an A-level maths class, saying that the core maths that they're doing is helping them to understand their other subjects. Things that the Advanced Maths Support Programme are going to be doing to support core maths teaching. As Kevin's mentioned, we're going to have a programme of professional development. There's an outline. As we book venues for courses and get that confirmed, the details will be on the website. We've started already. We've run 3 core maths conferences this term so far. Here's some of the feedback from those conferences. We had a mixture of teachers, some of them experienced core maths teachers, others of them about to start in September, and some that were maybe thinking of starting core maths in their school or college the following year. Generally speaking, people have been very positive. We're also developing free core maths resources for all qualifications. That's a big job. We've started, and already in this conference, the resources we've got so far have been shown to the teachers at that session. We're trialling the resources this coming academic year so that we can make sure that they're as useful as they can be to teachers, and we need feedback in that trial from both experienced teachers of core maths and teachers who are new to it. When they've been trialled and developed for a year, July 2019, we make them available to everybody. We won't have finished them all by then, we'll still be developing, but there'll be enough there so that you can use them usefully with other existing resources, such as textbooks or resources produced by the Core Maths Support Programme. As Kevin's already mentioned, we're going to be working with Maths Hubs to support the Core Maths workgroups over the next 2 years. 17%, Kevin said, that's the proportion of sixth forms where Core Maths had entries in 2017. A few years ago, that was nothing. The Core Maths Support Programme did groundbreaking work to get us to where we are now. We're fortunate that there's a lot more expertise in core maths all across the country. Some of the core maths experts work for MEI, and we're in contact with others and listening to them so that we can offer the best support we can for teachers over the coming years. And now I'm going to hand back to Charlie.
Great, thanks, Stella. Right, I've just got a couple of slides and then we'll do some questions. So a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, this is this idea about the moral purpose part of all this, just to say that there is a real moral purpose to this work. It's really important for young people and their futures. I guess something else I feel strongly is that all teachers at every stage of education, even at primary school, kind of attitudes to maths are part of what makes people choose maths post-16. And I think we really need to work on that right the way through the whole system. Some of what the ACCM is doing at primary is contributing to that. But the idea that we want studying maths post-16 to be the norm, as it is in other countries. We're not, in this country, I think, ever going to say, you must do maths post-16. That's not our style. What you've got to do is make it so that actually it's the obvious thing to do. Everyone will do it because you'd be a fool not to. But we need to be able to provide the tuition to make that possible. So the idea is that what we want is age 16 is students aren't saying, should I continue with maths? They're saying, what maths should I do? And actually, when they say what maths should I do, it should be clear that the institution where they're studying post-16 can offer them the maths that they need. And if it can't at the moment, that's what we've got to move towards, that young people can access what they need to get the maths skills that they need. And that's very, very important. So that's a big thing. But a call to action I've got now. What next? Well, if your school or college isn't yet registered with the AMSP, do so, because there's lots of benefits to that and it's free. So make sure that happens. I think also think about what your school and college does to encourage students to study maths post-16 and think actually, could we be doing more for that? Thinking about gender issues and inequalities and all, social inequality, all of that kind of thing. I mean, it's certainly the case that choices tend to be, I think that young people from more advantaged backgrounds make better choices about what subjects to do post-16. And we can all help with that, try to make sure that people really understand how important maths is, whatever their background. How can you provide in your institution a full range of qualifications for maths at level 3? How can you make it so that core maths is possible in your institution? Advanced Maths Premium might well help you to do that. So make sure people are aware of that. And I think that the last thing that certainly the Advanced Maths Support Programme will be doing is really trying to encourage universities and employers to really help us with this. It's something that's it's important for the country and it's important for individual young people. And I think it's a really important thing we're trying to do. Anyway, I'm going to stop there and we'll go on and do some questions. I think there's some mics and things, and we'll do our best to answer what you've got to ask us. So, any questions? I've got a gentleman at the back there.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Paul Glaister, unabashed, self-proclaimed national level 3 maths champion. Very much looking forward to working with the Advanced Maths Support Programme. I have a question about information. So I travel the length and breadth of the country to support level 3, increase participation, having first of all worked on the reforms in all of these qualifications. So you've got some really good qualifications to work with. And unlike Adrian Smith, who told me at lunch on Tuesday, I assume you can put your feet up now because the job is done. I said, no, Adrian, some of it's actually carry on with the work we start. My question is this. I don't want to, in my continued work, and nor should the Advanced Maths Support Programme have to do so, find out which centres across the country are offering the range of level 3 qualifications I need to know about by going to their open days. So I shouldn't have to go to all my local schools, for example, and ask them the question. So what I'd like to know is what we can do to make sure that everyone in the country who is working with the Advanced Maths Support Programme or advocating for it and level 3 maths to say where each of these qualifications are being offered at each of the centres in any region, whether it's an opportunity area or the rest of the country.
Yeah. So I think your question, Paul, really is that the ideal would be that if you thought of a school that was offering post-16 education, you'd be able to find out immediately what their level 3 maths offer was. Is that the essence of your question? Right. Okay, Kevin, can you?
Yeah, well, I haven't got an answer to that, Paul, except to say that is a very good suggestion. I think for parents and students to be able to see in their area where things are available, if they're required to study further maths or they're required to study core maths or A-level maths, to actually be able to go and look at, somewhere to get that information about schools in a particular area. What are their level 3 options in a particular year? I think that would be very useful. I think that's a suggestion that we can take forward, perhaps to work with the DFE about how we might bring something about that about. I think in terms of the AMSP, we do gather some of that information when we ask schools to register. We ask schools about the kinds of qualifications that they offer to year 12 and 13 students, but that's very much data that we collect in order to target our work and support in the country. But it's making it more widely available to everybody, parents, students and other teachers, about what's going on in their local area. And I think that would be very good. Yeah.
Okay, other questions? A lady at the front here. Can you wait for the mic? He's running down the stairs. Thank you, Joe.
Hi. We offer, we're only 11 to 16-year-old school. Yep. Could we offer core maths extra within the curriculum or like as an extra thing after school? Would we still be able to do that, do you know? Or would it be a school issue?
Okay. I'm not sure if I know the answer to that. Well, you won't get the funding. Yeah, I was going to say one thing I do know is that you wouldn't get the advanced maths premium funding. But I think a really important thing that in 11-16 school is just really promoting the idea that they should be doing more maths post-16 and really getting them up for that. So I think the idea of maybe even, where the core maths qualifications...
If we get the funding, could we still get the support?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't get support. It'll be available to everybody. But I mean, if you wanted to do that, I think that would be an individual school decision about how you did that. There can't be a thing that says you cannot do this qualification because you're not over 16. But yeah, okay. Any other questions in the audience? All right, okay. I've got something up at the top there.
Hello. I think there's a real problem with national understanding of what core maths is, with the exam boards all having different names for it. Is there any plans to try and bring them under one name so that parents and people that aren't in the core maths bubble understand what it is or begin to understand what it is?
Right. I think that's a very good question, and I think that it's something that we really are working on. It's something that frustrates me a lot. I think it'd be much, much clearer to everybody if it was clear what these qualifications were and you understood that qualification is core maths. And you know, there are different flavours of it, but it is core maths. And I think that's something that we're working on. I can't promise that we can fix it, but it's something that needs fixing. I absolutely agree. Okay, gentleman in the middle there.
My neighbour stopped me in the street the other day and said, I now know what you're doing next year. Core maths, it's the pure stuff that you do with A-level. But my point, I've got 2 points really. It's about participation. And I think there's 2 big barriers to participation. And one of them, I looked at the participation data from 2015, I think it was.
Yep.
And when you look at participation by ethnicity within the UK,
yep,
and you look at whether Asian children in the UK are going on to study A-level maths, if they've got a B at GCSE, about 35% of those children go on to study A-level maths. Whereas if they're white Caucasian students, it's about 15%.
Yeah.
So there's a deep cultural issue about maths uptake.
Yes.
And my second point is that conditions in schools need to be right for you to get good numbers. And my concern is with the current funding formula, as it is, that it's precluding uptake. And it seems to me that that can be solved with government intervention. Is there any chance that that's going to happen to make the conditions better? In my school, we had 40 students doing core maths 2 years ago. They're now being told they're doing 3 A-levels, and numbers are dwindling down to less than 10. I don't think the students are less interested in maths, but I don't think the conditions are as good for students to take it as it was 2 years ago when they were all doing 3.5.
Right. Okay, I'm going to pass that question on to my colleague Stella.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, there are cultural issues. It would be interesting to explore the reasons for those and whether there's anything we can do to make use of the motivations that some groups of students have that perhaps others don't have yet. To answer your other query, will the government do something to improve things? Well, I guess they've introduced the advanced maths premium, so I guess they probably think they have done something. Whether that's enough to change things or not, I guess we'll see. Whether they'll do something more if it isn't, well, I guess we'll see. I don't speak for the government or have any idea what they might do in the future.
I think what we can do is make sure we've got very clear information about what's happening in schools and what the drivers are, and then all we can do then is to think, well, how could with that information, what might we do to make things better? Okay, gentleman in the middle there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. And with the lady in the pink next as well, please.
Do you know what proportion of students doing core maths are doing it as an exit strategy from A-level maths, and what proportion are doing it purely to do it straight away, upfront core maths?
Stella.
Short answer, no. I think my impression is from teachers I've talked to that it is a thing they choose to do in its own right. It may be that they're guided to do that when they're not sure whether they want to do A-level or core maths. Maybe they're told, well, this might be more suitable for you. I just don't know, honestly.
I mean, what do you think of a situation where somebody has started an A-level or started an AS level and then was advised to switch to core maths? Because I haven't heard of that happening in any scale.
I guess a question of like when students are only doing 3 A-levels now, which is much more common, and they realise that they're just struggling with A-level maths. That's a lot of schools, I think, are struggling to know what to advise to those students when they've done a year and they've got 1 year left in their A-levels and looking like they're only going to come out with 2 good grades. And the question is, what do you advise to those students? Is core maths a possible answer? Is that being done? I think that's what I'm...
Yeah, okay, no, that's interesting. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Could the lady in the pink, please?
Until today, I thought I understood about the advanced pupil premium.
Yep.
Is the baseline a static one?
Yes.
Or is it going to roll along and therefore eventually the money will dry up because you can't possibly add that?
It is a static baseline as it stands at the moment.
And do we know how long the government is thinking of offering this money for at the moment?
3 years.
It's 3 years at the moment.
So the first time it will be applied will be this September, looking at the census data this September for planned entries, and then schools will receive their premium in their budget from sort of, let me get the year right, April 2019. So for that financial year is when that money will be applied, and then it'll be for the 2 years after that. But the baseline is those 2 years that Charlie had in his slide, fixed 15, 16, 16, 17.
Excellent. And as a comment to the previous point, we're a science college that makes core maths compulsory for anybody who is not studying A-level maths or doing GCSE resit. And I know at least 2 other schools in our area who are slightly more generous in their offers for A-level students if they agree to do core maths alongside. Yeah,
I mean, it's my view that if you are an A-level student, you're not doing a maths A-level, you should be doing AS or core maths, definitely. And for most, it would be core maths. And we need to get, if that became the norm, that would be brilliant. Any more questions?
There's one just here.
Gentleman. Yeah.
Hi, I was at a maths collaboration meeting on Tuesday after school, and it was run by Pearson, and the gentleman running the session alluded to other prerequisites to gaining and keeping the maths premium money. I wondered if you knew anything more about that. He essentially said if they didn't achieve a certain grade, that money might be taken back. I don't know if that's something that's been mentioned.
Kevin,
so as I understand it, there are no prerequisites about the outcomes of students. It's because it is based before they've taken their exams. So it's based on the census information. So these are students before they will have taken any qualification. However, if you read in detail the DFE notes, they warn within their notes that if it's misapplied by schools just sending waves of students and saying all of these are doing A-level maths and further maths, and then at the end that none of them do, they reserve the right to retrospectively say that you're mistreating the system.
I was just wondering if that's a confusion with the large uplift program funding.
So there is
program uplift funding.
Yeah, so there is another funding incentive that we haven't mentioned that came about as a result of the Smith review. There's always been a large program funding uplift. So any student who's studying so this applies, I think this probably applies more to students doing further maths than anything else, but if you are doing 4 A-levels and you get grade Bs or better in those A-levels, then you're entitled to a 10% funding uplift for that student. And if they do 5 A-levels, you're entitled to a 20% funding uplift. But they have to get Bs in all the subjects, so it really is for students who are going to succeed at high grades at A-level. And that is applied retrospectively because you have to wait until they've got their grades. What changed last summer in light of the sort of announced, well, it was actually in the budget in November, was announced that the funding uplift in terms of further maths, students would be eligible if they had just got a grade C or better. So there's been a weakening of that so that actually it takes away a bit more of the risk of students taking further maths as perhaps as a 4th subject.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, in that case, I think we'll stop there and enjoy the football this evening, perhaps. Anyway, or not. Right, okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.